This is Rock and Roll English. Real people, real English. Here's your host, Martin Johnston.
Hello everyone and welcome to another episode of Rock and Roll English Full Volume. I am here with
Dan the Man.
And we are speaking about...
I don't know.
We are speaking about, Dan, the cure for baldness. What is baldness?
It's when you lose your hair.
Yes, when you lose your hair, you go bald. Or the noun is baldness. Because apparently an ingredient in McDonald's fries, this was written in America, so they say fries. We say chips. So an ingredient in McDonald's chips has been found to cure baldness.
Are you serious? Because I'm going to be getting down McDonald's because I'm getting a little bit worried.
Me too. In fact, that's basically what I wanted to talk about, baldness, because for me, that would be the worst thing in the world. I honestly just don't know what I would do.
Yeah, hair transplant.
Well, that's it. Apparently, I've done some research on this, Dan, and now, apparently, that actually works. I've got some things about going bald, and we are going to look if they are a myth or if they are true. So if it's a myth, it's just what people say, but it's actually not true.
Okay.
And so one of them is hair restoration never looks natural. Myth or true, Dan?
Myth.
Yes, exactly, because now there are products, Dan, that works. Okay, so finally, if this happens, we can be saved. So if your hair falls out, you'll be able to get your shit standard haircut that you've had for the last 25 years. You can get it back like that, Dan, in a second.
Fantastic. That'd be worth £8,000.
Exactly. I know I used a conditional there, Dan. I said if your hair falls out, you will be able to get it back.
Third.
What conditional was that? First, Dan. First. Okay. We use that for something that's more probable. So it's obviously more probable, well, in my opinion, that your hair will fall out.
Yeah. Oh, this is actually quite an interesting show for me because I'm starting to panic.
Yeah. No, me too. So there's another myth that everyone here in Italy always says to me, if you pull out a grey hair, 3 grey hairs will grow.
That's obviously bollocks because otherwise everyone would have grey hair.
Well, here, when I say to someone, oh, look, you've got grey hair, they will not touch it because they say, if I pull it out, then 3 more will grow.
Yeah, I wish that was the case because I have no problem going grey. I don't mind that.
Or I tell you, if someone said to me, you've got the choice, go grey tomorrow or even 1% risk of going bald, I would bite their hand off going grey tomorrow. So what do I mean? I will bite their hand off.
You'd be so desperate to do it that you would say yes immediately.
Yes, and probably bite their hand off. But unfortunately, no one has made me that offer yet. If someone wants to, feel free, okay?
How much would you be willing to pay to alleviate your worries of hair loss?
Lovely word there, Dan. That's even nearly too rock and roll for me, to alleviate, to take away your worries. At the moment, I still think I'm okay, but if the situation gets any worse, then I would pay everything I have, Dan. I would even sell you as a friend.
Am I the only thing you have?
Oh, yeah, Dan, the only thing I have. So stress causes hair loss. What do you think, myth or true?
True.
It says mostly myth, because apparently, obviously, there is some truth in that. So what about you, Dan? Because you said you're worried about going bald. Are you stressed? Tell us your stresses, Dan, okay?
Well, I think what it was, when I became a semi-vegetarian, that's when I thought, things aren't looking too good, so I've started eating meat again.
Well, maybe that's not on the list, Dan, but maybe, if you don't eat meat, then your hair falls out. It's possible.
Yeah, I mean, I've come to that conclusion myself. There's no science backing that up.
So it says backing that up. He means supporting it. Anyway, I forgot to actually mention because we got sidetracked. So that means we started talking about something else. About the research of this McDonald's chips. So researchers at Yokohama National University found that they could regrow hair in mice using a chemical to make McDonald's chips. It's not very good to know that they use these chemicals to make the chips in McDonald's.
Yeah, and how many bags of chips do you have to eat to get one hair growing back? Because you might just end up being really, really fat, but have a full head of hair.
Yeah, and you do not want to get fat again, do you, Dan?
Yeah, I've said no. I can't do it.
Also, they did the experiment on mice. I mean, have you ever seen a bald mouse?
That's cool. But then again, I've never seen a bald mouse eating a McDonald's chips, so...
Exactly. The world's gone crazy, Dan.
Yeah.
So crazy that I think we need to stop this podcast.
Yeah, okay. All right, I'll speak to you tomorrow.
See you later. Okay, so that was Dan and me speaking about how to cure baldness. Just go to McDonald's and eat chips. And before we look at the rock and roll vocabulary, remember the transcript, if you want it, is in the members area. And if you want to be part of the members area, where do you go? rockandrollenglish.com/full volume. Put your email in there and then you can get the transcripts, lots of extra content, and obviously these podcasts, which will finish on Friday, the free ones, then obviously they will continue. Anyway, let's look at that rock and roll vocabulary. There wasn't actually that much in today's show, but that's because we speak naturally. Sometimes there's loads, like shitloads, and sometimes there's not much. It depends. We have normal conversations at Rock and Roll English. That's what we are. Real people, real English, as my American friend says at the beginning. Anyway, we had the word myth. A myth is like a story which everyone thinks is true, but often is not. We had a lovely term when I said that I would bite their hand off at the chance to go grey tomorrow. It basically means like I wouldn't hesitate to accept that offer. I would do it immediately. Another thing that I just thought of now is often my definitions are better at the end of the show because I have time to think. Obviously, during the show, I don't have time to think, so I have to ask Dictionary Dan. Anyway, another piece of rock and roll vocabulary from Dictionary Dan was to alleviate. So this normally means to like reduce, especially problems or worries. In fact, Dan said, how much would I be willing to pay to alleviate my worries, to like reduce them? And the answer is a lot. He also said that there was no science backing that up. So if you back something up, it's like to support it. Often you do that on your computer, a backup, because it needs extra support, let's say. And a real rock and roll piece of vocabulary was sidetracked. So when you get sidetracked, remember, get sidetracked, it's like when you become distracted. For example, I'm talking to you now, but I've just seen a bird flying past the window. And the thing about birds is that they're great. You know, now I'm sidetracked. I'm distracted by the bird. Anyway, let's get back to the podcast. Although I don't actually have anything else to say, except there are only a few days left of the free trial. After Friday, these podcasts, you will need a password. Where do you get the password? The members area. Where is the members area? rockandrollenglish.com/full volume. Keep on rocking, baby.
Thanks so much for listening to Rock and Roll English. For more great content and to stay up to date, visit rockandrollenglish.com and facebook.com/rockandrollenglish. We'll catch you next time.